Hi guys. I decided to make a video partially because I've always been interested in blogging, but also because this is a very important topic for me and I feel like I have to get my voice out there. I will say that if politics is not your thing, I'm sorry, and we're probably all sick of hearing about the election. It's almost over, but I do want to put this out there. I'm here today to beg everyone watching this video that can vote, please do not vote for Donald Trump. And maybe at this point your mind is set, and perhaps it's a tad rich of me to assume that I can change your mind. But if you're unsure of whom you'll vote for or considering voting for Trump, just hear me out. And I will say, if the Republican nominee were someone like John Kasich or Marco Rubio or even, please clap, Jeb Bush, probably wouldn't be making this video right now because I don't think their policies were nearly as dangerous. I don't think their behavior nearly as bad or damning for a president. And no matter if you look at his policies or his behavior, I think Trump would be the absolute worst choice imaginable for president. So first I'll just address some of the major issues I have with his policies, and then go on to any other issues I may see. So first, Trump's tax plans would simply be a disaster for the economy. He, as we all know, proposes tax cuts that on the surface sound nice because everybody likes tax cuts. But with a little digging, you see that there's a much starker reality. Nonpartisan groups and committees have estimated that his plan would add somewhere between $12 and $20 trillion to the national debt, which is already $19 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, personally, I think this is kind of ironic for the candidate of a party that insists that doing crazy things like expanding healthcare access would make the United States the next Greece, when Trump's plan actually puts us closer to Greece's situation, and without the benefit of, I don't know, never having to choose between debt or death if you're uninsured. What gets better is this. Trump has at times claimed that his tax and spending plans, such as this, would be remedied by getting rid of our trade deficit. Well, I hate to break it to you, he banks on people not knowing what a trade deficit is or what it does to an economy. A trade deficit is simply based on the fact that we have more imports than exports in the US. Now, this is true. Trump is correct in saying we have a trade deficit. But that does not mean that once we change that, or once we have a trade surplus, our tax revenue will magically increase, and it doesn't mean that our economy will necessarily improve. It is worth noting that technically, yes, in some equations for GDP, like the Keynesian model, GDP is consumer spending plus government spending plus investment plus net exports, with net exports being exports minus imports. And if you have a trade deficit, then in these models, yes, GDP is lowered. But some economists don't agree with this model. And they even argue that a trade deficit is good for the economy because it means we're getting more goods at a lower cost than if we produce them here, and simply put, everybody likes and generally benefits from lower prices. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what I think. But to suggest that getting rid of a trade deficit will not only fix our economy, but also provide the tax revenue necessary to pay for these tax cuts is disingenuous at best and perhaps straight out dishonest. Now, the most defining aspect of Trump's campaign and the most defining issue he has brought up is immigrants, refugees, and immigration reform. From the first day of his campaign, Trump has vilified immigrants. He has promised to build a wall. He has promised to deport the 12 or so million undocumented immigrants in the United States. To his credit, he has at times said he'll focus only on the criminal aliens, but for each time he's done that, he's gone back and said, no, build a wall to deport them all. Here's my problem with the wall. For each wall, there's a ladder and rope 1 foot higher. Walls don't work. This isn't even mentioning the fact that there's people who immigrate here illegally don't even cross the land border. They fly in and they overstay their visa. And I suspect that with the presence of a wall, illegal immigration by land may go down, but illegal immigration by air will skyrocket. No pun intended. And Trump's general positions on the immigration issue have illustrated some of his most damning flaws, in fact, probably the worst thing about him, other than his xenophobia and racism. He flip-flops all the time. Immigration isn't the only issue. Sure, he may say he'll deport illegals today, but then tomorrow he'll only focus on the criminals. And then on abortion, he'll say one day he'll punish women who get abortions, then tomorrow say no, he'll only focus on the doctors. On LGBT issues, he'll say he's the most gay-friendly candidate the Republicans have ever put up, but then promise to sign legislation not exactly friendly to anti-discrimination measures. And this isn't necessarily because Trump is pandering or because he holds various positions. Much more troublingly, it's because he has a loose cannon that says what he thinks is popular. He doesn't think before he speaks, and then he's forced to backtrack when he realizes that he's violated some of his followers' consciences. And this happens in every single one of these instances. On immigration, he knew that when he said he can't deport them all, he'd lose the likes of Ann Coulter and other anti-immigrant folks on the right. On abortion, he realized he'd creeped out a lot of women. And on LGBT issues, he risked losing the support of the religious right. And in all these cases, he needs as many votes as he can get if he wants to get to 270 on Tuesday. And yet, in the face of so many flaws in policy, many on the right are saying, don't even look at personality, because oh boy, it's worse than his policies. A couple of weeks ago, I was sent an article that was written by a presumably Republican-leading writer that argued we should just set aside Trump's personality and throw to the writer Clinton's personality as well, and just look at the issues. Partially, the author supposed because both of their personalities are shitty, so it just sort of cancels out. But more so because personality shouldn't matter for the presidency. But it does. Personality determines the stability of our economy and military, and it ensures that we have steady leadership to pursue our national interests. And if you look at Trump's demeanor, his rhetoric, his statements, both public and private, and his tweets, then you see he doesn't have the temperament needed to be president. I mean, here's just a brief sampling of some of the things that Trump has either said, done, or tweeted. If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I would be dating her. I moved on her like a bitch. Then all of a sudden, she's now got the big phony tits and everything. She totally changed her look. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. Tweeting, did crooked Hillary help? Disgusting. Check out sex tape in the past. Alicia M. become a U.S. citizen so she could use her in the debate at 3:20ish in the morning. He mocked a disabled reporter. He conflated the definition of freedom of the press by tweeting, it is not freedom of the press when newspapers and others are allowed to say and write whatever they want, even if it is completely false. And so much more. Now, these are self-evidently bad. Trump routinely disparages women, rails against China, but then makes his merchandise in China. He shows no respect for the disabled or the press and seems unhealthily concerned with women's sex life. Now let me ask, if Obama had said or done any of these, or if he had 5 children to 3 wives, all of whom he had cheated on, would we have elected him president? You know, I would say, I hope not. And I give that same answer for Trump. But he seems to get a free pass on all of this. Now, the inevitable answer to this is, surely, yeah, Trump sucks, but Hillary Clinton is worse. So let's chat about her. The biggest concern the American people seem to have about Hillary Clinton, it seems, is her emails, especially concerning the FBI reopening some aspects of her case just a few days before the election. But in fact, just on Sunday, Comey, the director of the FBI, revealed that the FBI's initial conclusions about the emails didn't even change. Yes, her usage was probably improper, but not enough for there to be a recommendation of indictment. Even so, many still insist that Clinton's usage of a private email server was secretive and perhaps tantamount to treason. You know what? Sure. I would prefer that Clinton knew how to use emails. I'd prefer if she just followed the rules if she did what was right. But she's been under FBI investigation now more than once over this, and the same conclusion was reached that she did not violate the law and that what she had done was similar to what others in office, such as Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice, had done. I'm not justifying or criticizing what they did, they just did that. Now, you may think, okay, well, Clinton got away with it because of her last name, and, situation was different because she was Secretary of State or this or that. And look, first, I absolutely recognize that people's punishment in the criminal justice system is often a function of their bank account and clout size. And second, I recognize, again, that she probably should have done some things different. But don't you think a Republican-led Congress and an FBI agency described as having a very anti-Clinton atmosphere would jump at the first legitimate opportunity to punish her? The fact that they've investigated her so many times and found nothing legitimate to punish her for tells me that this whole email thing is blown out of proportion, especially in comparison to some of the things Trump has done. And then there's Benghazi. Again, this was another situation that should have been handled better, yes, but Clinton was unnecessarily vilified for this. Prior to the attacks, Clinton had asked for funding for security enhancements at the consulate in Benghazi multiple times, and Congress, led by Republicans, said, no, we don't need them. And they could have had a reason to believe we do not need to fund it any more than we already are. I'm not saying that the attack is the Republicans' fault. I'm not saying it's Clinton's fault. But to then blame Clinton for security enhancements that cannot be afforded because, newsflash, Congress appropriates the budget, not the Secretary of State, is wrong. Even a Republican-led special commission in Congress cannot lead to any charges or evidence of wrongdoing on Clinton's end, and yet the GOP continues to hammer Clinton for her supposed bad handling of the situation. This isn't even looking at the fact that attacks on American consulates are somewhat common and mostly out of the control of whatever Secretary of State is in office. I mean, there were more deaths at consulates during the Bush, Clinton, and Reagan administrations than during the Obama administration. But only was it when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State that this became such a huge issue for Congress. And I don't mean to, minimize deaths that happen. Every attack is bad. But to unilaterally pin it on Clinton is also wrong. And even the Congress's commission said during the time that they were starting the Benghazi investigation to kill any chance of a Clinton political future. And that's just as wrong as the attack itself. With all these scandals, Hillary Clinton has been under federal investigation something like 7 times, I think. Might be 6 or 7. But she's been found guilty in exactly 0 of them. Don't get me wrong, I'd prefer a candidate who's never been under federal investigation. But you won't really find that in Trump either. Okay, he hasn't been under federal investigation, but he has been under investigation in thousands of civil, personal, and state cases. Over 4,000 to be exact. Now, when you're rich and such, like Trump is, sure, a lot of people try to sue you for money or whatever, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But some of these cases have nothing to do with money. Trump University, housing discrimination against African Americans, sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, verifiably not paying workers and contractors, the improper usage of campaign and charity donations. Even if Trump is directly responsible for wrongdoing in 0.5% of these cases, that'd still be over 20 instances of legal wrongdoing, and 20 more than Clinton has been found guilty of. So to suggest that Trump is somehow less corrupt than Clinton is ignorant of reality at best. And you know what? I will concede. Hillary Clinton has lied, and at times about some pretty petty shit, like landing under sniper fire in Bosnia or whatever. But fact checker after fact checker has shown her to be more honest than pretty much anyone running in this entire cluster fuck of an election, and she's especially more honest than Trump. And if you're going to say about Trump, who has bragged about sexual assault on tape, oh, well, we all talk about that. We all talk like that sometimes. Then why not say about Clinton, well, we all lie sometimes? Because really, it's more accurate. I've never engaged in sexual assault. I never plan to. And by God, I would never brag about it. But I've probably lied in the past week. So why do we give Trump a free pass for talking so obscenely about women? But then when Clinton does something that's pretty human, lying, we get so angry about it. Now, I'm not condoning lying. I'm not saying lying is good, especially from elected officials. But if you're going to say we all talk obscenely, then at least say to We all lie. And then you have these accusations that Hillary Clinton is for a big bank and a corporatist. But here's the paradox about Hillary Clinton. From the far right, she's accused of being a far-left socialist. Rudy Giuliani, a top Trump surrogate, said she's likely a socialist at heart. But then from the far left, she's accused of being a corporatist, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a Republican with a D next door name on the ballot. Newsflash, she can't be both. Maybe she doesn't exactly help with the confusion. She's called herself both a progressive that likes to get things done, whatever that means, and also being kind of moderate and center. I can say in any case, she's flip-flopped much less than Trump. Trump has been a member of both major parties, the Reform Party, and of no party in his life. And regardless of that fact, Clinton has shown a consistent commitment to a lot of the same principles over her political career. Healthcare reform, the equality of women, gays, minorities in the US and around the world. And even if you don't agree with all of these things, or you have some different perspective than she might have expressed over her years, you can't deny that her record is relatively more consistent than is Trump's. I mean, you have Trump who, as I said, he claims to be pro-gay, but then has a running mate who sponsors the psychologically disproven and harmful practice of conversion therapy. He once described himself as pro-choice, but then said women should be punished for abortions, but then said, oh, no, only the doctors. He said that government-paid single-payer healthcare would be the smartest option for the United States, but then he now wants to repeal and replace Obamacare because it's a step in that disastrous direction. And he has said he favors open borders for free trade, made his merchandise in China and Mexico, but has run a campaign against the trade deals that allow economic interaction with these countries. So, if you think it's hard to know where Clinton stands on a lot of the issues, it should be a lot harder for you to know where Trump really stands on a lot of these issues. So with all this said, I simply don't want Trump to be the face of our nation in front of the world. The only person whose face would be uglier would be Ted Cruz's, and that's only because of his literal face. In all seriousness, when people around the globe look at the United States, I want them to see the power of American promise and of the American dream, not the darkest shadows of our past. When people visit America or come to live here, I want them to feel welcomed and embraced, as though, in the words of Ronald Reagan, they're in a shining city on a hill. I don't want them to fear judgment or worse for their religion or skin color. And honestly, I think that Trump presidency would be telling the world that we are at least okay with racism, xenophobia, sexism, and classism. And even if you think of the Clinton presidency, it would be telling the world we're okay with mishandled emails or shady closed-door deals or any of her other scandals. I'd much rather have a president who, while personally self-serving, has a grasp on policy, economics, and international relations unmatched by any candidate we've seen in quite a long time. I'm not going to say ever, but in probably a generation. I'd much rather tell the world we embrace our first female president, instead of the first president to go on tape saying, you just grab them by the pussy in reference to women, or also in reference to women, you've got to treat them like shit. I mean, it's for all these reasons that only 7% of Europeans and 4% of Mexicans trust that Trump would make the right decisions on the world stage. This isn't a matter of the rest of the world liking us. I doubt that many Europeans or Mexicans like Clinton either. So we can't just shrug this off as, oh, well, screw what the world thinks. This is a matter of having the trust of our closest military and economic allies, and of our neighbor. And both are vitally important to our national security and economy. Because if they don't trust us, they're not going to want to do business with us, and they will be less likely to defend us if something ever happens to us. And you know what? I am inclined to agree with him. I do not think that Trump would make the right decisions, and if you care about any of the following issues, any single one, healthcare, the economy, women, LGBT people, children, the poor, the middle class, the disabled, vulnerable immigrant groups, anyone except rich old white guys, if you don't want a president that has been endorsed by the KKK, who has shown views hostile to freedom of the press, speech, or assembly, who is not really keen on criminal justice reform or nuclear disarmament or the environment, or if you don't want a president that tweets about sex tapes at 3 a.m., that tweets sad non-sarcastically, or really that tweets for any purpose other than pandering to millennials, then the choice should be as clear to you as it is to me. I made this video again because I don't just disagree with Donald Trump's policies. I would be appalled at their recklessness and stupidity. I would ache of pain knowing that some dear friends of mine who happen to be undocumented immigrants would either have to worry if they'll be deported or worried if they'll face discrimination because our president has normalized the most disgusting of words, actions, and behaviors. I'll struggle to explain some close friends of mine that I have in Spain and Latin America how we let this happen, and I'll feel as though I'll constantly have to defend a person who is supposed to be a role model for not only the nation, but the free world itself. Above all, I made this video because I will never, especially if Trump wins tomorrow, feel as though I did enough to prevent his presidency. Though, I must end with a very important note. While I condemn and have condemned Trump in the strongest terms and would not urge anyone to vote for him, we cannot write him and his supporters off completely. I do not view individual Trump supporters in the same way that I view Donald Trump. And that's because Trump does raise valid concerns about our political process. He is the face of frustration with a political and economic system that favors the already well-to-do. To ignore this would cause these issues to boil over in an even more extreme form in the future. But that doesn't mean I have to think that Trump's solutions are valid, and I certainly don't. You know, he says he's for the little guy, but then got rich with a small multi-million-dollar loan. He has since manipulated the tax and bankruptcy codes. He wants to promote American values, but he's an avowed, proud sexual predator. So, yeah, I made a video condemning him, but I do not condemn Trump's supporters. And I don't want anyone watching this to leave thinking that I condemn them, or leave thinking that it's okay to condemn them. I mean, our politics are already polarized enough, and I simply don't believe that all of his supporters are racist or hateful or xenophobic. They may overlook those aspects of Trump, and I would urge them not to. But a lot of them are good people who just want solutions to our problems. But I'm here to say his solutions are bad. And, you know, even if people agree with him, you know, they're not as bad as he and his solutions are. So with that, please vote. This election season has been nasty. It's been vitriolic. It's probably been the worst in decades, maybe since 1860. And we can only really put it to rest if we make our voices heard in one form or another. No matter whom you vote for, even if you vote for Trump, I just implore you to consider the very important issues facing us. With that, thanks for watching. I do plan to continue to vlog, and not just about politics, but I just felt that this was a very important point to get out. And please exercise your right to vote, exercise your freedom of speech, and I do want to have a discussion with you guys, so leave a comment. Tell me what you think. What do you care about? What do you want to see?